Jesus' teachings were revolutionary and often challenged the religious authorities of his time, leading to significant consequences for his ministry and ultimately his life. One of the primary ways Jesus challenged the religious leaders was by questioning their interpretation and application of the law. In the Sermon on the Mount, for example, Jesus reinterpreted key aspects of the Mosaic Law, emphasizing the spirit of the law over literal adherence. He taught that righteousness must exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees and focused on internal transformation rather than external compliance. Jesus also critiqued the hypocrisy and legalism of the Pharisees and scribes. He condemned their practices of putting heavy burdens on people while neglecting justice, mercy, and faithfulness. His parables, such as the parable of the Good Samaritan and the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, highlighted the shortcomings of the religious elite and promoted a more inclusive and compassionate understanding of God's will. Additionally, Jesus' actions often defied religious norms. He healed on the Sabbath, a day on which work was prohibited, arguing that it was lawful to do good and save life on the Sabbath. He also associated with tax collectors, sinners, and those considered unclean, breaking social barriers and extending God's grace to the marginalized. These actions directly confronted the purity laws and social practices upheld by the religious authorities. Jesus' claim to divine authority was another major point of contention. By forgiving sins, performing miracles, and referring to himself as the Son of God, Jesus asserted a direct connection with God that challenged the authority of the religious leaders. His actions in the temple, such as overturning the tables of the money changers, symbolized his challenge to the corrupt practices within the heart of Jewish worship. The consequences of Jesus' teachings and actions were significant. The religious leaders saw him as a threat to their authority and stability. Their growing opposition culminated in a series of confrontations in Jerusalem, leading to his arrest. Jesus was ultimately tried by the Sanhedrin, the Jewish council, and handed over to the Roman authorities, who sentenced him to crucifixion. Despite these consequences, Jesus' teachings have had a lasting impact. They introduced a radical rethinking of religious and social norms, emphasizing love, mercy, and justice. His challenge to the authorities of his time paved the way for a new understanding of God's kingdom, one that continues to inspire and transform lives today.